Sigvaldi Jarl. Sigvaldi Jarl was the commander of the Jomsvikings, the most feared mercenary brotherhood in the entire Viking world. These were not ordinary warriors, raiders. They were bound by elaborate oaths that demanded no fear, no retreat, and above all else, never abandoning your brothers. Sigvaldi had earned the right to lead them and was, by reputation, the finest warrior commander of his generation. But in 986 AD, at the Battle of Hjörungavag off the coast of Norway, his fleet clashed with the forces of the Norwegian chieftain Hakon Jarl. The fighting was brutal. The Jomsvikings were holding the line. And then Sigvaldi looked at the battle, made a private calculation, and signaled his ships to turn around. He sailed away mid-battle. This wasn't because he was losing. He simply decided he did not want to be there anymore. His men were still fighting and dying behind him, screaming his name at his retreating sail. The men he left behind were captured on the beach and executed one by one. They died with his name on their lips as a curse. The historian Saxo Grammaticus wrote about this betrayal in Gesta Danorum with obvious disgust. Sigvaldi led the most loyal warriors in the world, men who promised never to run, and then he broke every promise they had, including his own. Adric Striona. Most traitors pick a side. Adric Striona, alderman of Mercia, just switched allegiances whenever it was convenient. Though an English nobleman, he spent years helping the Viking king Canute take England apart. His extraordinary treachery made the Anglo-Saxon Chronicle explicitly name him the most treacherous man in all England. Between 1009 and 1017 AD, Adric betrayed King Aethelred II to the Danes, switched back to the English, and then switched again. The climax hit at the Battle of Asandun on October 18, 1016. The two armies were matched and England had a real chance to win. Then, deliberately mid-engagement, Adric withdrew his Mercian forces and just walked away. England's army collapsed without them, and the kingdom fell to Canute within months. Adric walked up to Canute expecting a massive reward. After all, he had just handed him the whole of England. Canute received him, thanked him warmly, and had him executed in 1017. The logic was admiringly brutal. A man who sold out every master he served could not be trusted. He was killed by the one man clever enough to learn from watching him. Kal Arneson. Kal Arneson had everything a Viking lord could want: land, power, and the personal trust of King Olaf II of Norway. Kal repaid him by helping to kill him. On July 29, 1030 AD, at the Battle of Stiklestad, Olaf was killed by his own subjects. As Snorri Sturluson preserves in Heimskringla, these Norwegian chieftains had previously sworn loyalty to him. They switched sides for Danish gold and titles from King Canute. Kal led the betrayal, passing secret troop numbers and tactical plans to the enemy. This let the rebel army swarm Olaf with 3 times as many men, leaving him no escape. The old stories even say Kal was the one who personally delivered the final strike. But a year later, the church declared Olaf a saint. Miracles at his tomb drew huge crowds. His exiled son Magnus returned with overwhelming popular support, sweeping the Danish-backed regime out entirely. Every lord who killed the now Saint Olaf had a serious problem. Kal spent years trying to earn forgiveness, helping put Magnus on the throne. But Magnus used him and exiled him anyway. They sold out their king for titles, and he became Norway's patron saint. Hakon Eriksson. Some are handed greatness and protect it. Hakon Eriksson was handed greatness and sold it for a job title. His father and uncle built a genuinely respected reputation for Norwegian leadership. So when the Danish king Canute appointed Hakon as ruler of Norway around 1015 AD, he inherited generations of goodwill. Instead of ruling as a Norwegian leader, Hakon spent 15 years acting as a Danish administrator wearing a Norwegian face. He collected Danish tribute, suppressed Norwegian resistance, and used his respected family name to justify a foreign occupation. The Agrip of Nordics Konungsogam, an old 12th century historian, notes that ordinary people saw right through him. He wasn't a ruler, he was a collaborator renting out his family's honor. Between 1029 and 1030 AD, Hakon drowned in the deadly waters near Scotland. The details are mysterious, but when historians wrote about it, they sounded mostly just relieved. There was no sadness, no tribute, just a cold, hard fact. His family spent generations building trust, and he threw it all away for a job title. Einar Wrymouth. Even by brutal Viking standards, there were absolute rules. You never weaponized a peace meeting. The guest protection code wasn't an optional courtesy, it was a moral absolute defining honorable men. Breaking it placed you completely outside society, earning open hatred from other Vikings. Around 1014 AD in the Orkney Islands, Einar Wrymouth and his brothers invited their cousin Jarl Einar to a reconciliation meeting at a farmstead in Stennis. They claimed they wanted to peacefully settle a family dispute over earldom inheritance rights. Trusting the sacred guest code, Jarl Einar accepted and walked inside the farmstead. Immediately, the doors were locked behind him. The building was set on fire, and he burned alive inside. The Orkney Inga saga, compiled around 1200 AD, records this event not with admiration, but with the specific disgust reserved for absolute cowardice, disguising murder as a dinner invitation. The killers grabbed power for a little while before being kicked out almost immediately, but the sense of betrayal in the Orkney Islands lasted for generations. Vikings had a specific word for men who turned a peace talk into a murder trap, and it was the ultimate insult. Alfric of Hampshire. By 992 AD, England was exhausted. Viking raiders had been bleeding the country dry for over a decade. Desperate, King Ethelred II assembled a massive naval force to destroy the Viking fleet and stop the brutal cycle for good. The king put Alfric, the governor of Hampshire, in charge, mostly because he was the king's most trusted right-hand man. Instead of leading the attack, Alfric sent the Vikings a warning letter. He passed along detailed intelligence, revealing exactly how many English ships were coming and when they would move. Thanks to this treason, the Viking fleet easily maneuvered out of the trap. Then, on the eve of battle, Alfric faked an illness and abandoned his own command. The Anglo-Saxon historian recorded this betrayal with furious precision. The Vikings escaped without losing a single ship. As punishment, Alfric was exiled, and his son was blinded. But the real damage was national. Historian Richard Abels notes this betrayal proved to Viking commanders that England had traitors inside its own government. Raids intensified into a full-scale invasion, ending with the entire kingdom falling to Canute in 1016. One traitor, one night. The fall of England started here. Olaf Skotkonung. Here is something unusual. A king who betrayed his people while sitting directly on the throne. Around 1018 AD, Olaf Skotkonung, king of Sweden, wanted to start a war with Norway. The problem? His nobles and the Swedish people, who voted on big decisions at public meetings called the Thing, definitely did not. So, Olaf went behind everyone's backs. He secretly negotiated to sacrifice Swedish territorial rights in exchange for the Norwegian military backing he personally wanted. He traded away rights that simply weren't his to give. But the truth came out. At the Great Public Assembly at Uppsala, law speaker Thorgnir stood before thousands of freemen and informed the king exactly what they thought. He reminded Olaf that Swedish kings who ignored their people's will had historically been drowned in a swamp. As Snorri Sturluson records, the massive crowd roared its agreement. Terrified, Olaf publicly surrendered. He was forced to make peace and spent his remaining years politically diminished, sidelined by his own son. He had every advantage, but secretly sold his subjects' future, and they found out. Sigrid the Haughty. This last story is different. Sigrid the Haughty was never technically a traitor. By Viking rules, she broke no oaths and owed King Olaf Tryggvason of Norway nothing, but leading her off this list would be dishonest. Around 998 AD, King Olaf demanded the wealthy Swedish noblewoman convert to Christianity and marry him. When she calmly refused, he insulted her and struck her across the face. According to Snorri Sturluson's Heimskringla, Sigrid delivered a composed response. "This may be the death of you." She had a brilliant political brain. She married the powerful Danish king Sweyn Forkbeard and spent years slowly gathering a group of allies.
Bringing in her son, Olaf Skotkonung of Sweden, and allying with Boleslav I of Poland, she turned a personal insult into a multinational strategic operation. At the Battle of Svolder in 1000 AD, Olaf sailed straight into her trap. Catastrophically outnumbered, his flagship surrounded, Olaf leapt into the sea and was never seen again. Sigrid never picked up a weapon. She simply constructed the mechanism that erased him, making sure kings lined up to finish the job.